I think the Bills are going to hate me after with this.
Well, we're starting out with the Bills, so
Yeah,
I
speaking
appreciate
of the
it.
Bills, nice transition, Dirk. It's almost like you do this.
So we're going to start with the coaching staff, then go to free agency, go to the draft for every one of these teams. I got a breakdown here for the coaches. We got head coach Sean McDermott. He's been the coach since 2017. Prior to joining Buffalo, he spent 6 seasons as the DC for the Carolina Panthers, including during their NFC conference title victory and their Super Bowl appearance in 2015, I want to say?
I think that's right.
Yeah. Has 7 playoff appearances and 5 AFC East division titles since becoming the Bills head coach.
That's infuriating.
It is. It hurt me to say it. 2 AFC East championship appearances, lost to Kansas City both times. He is 86-45 in the regular season, and he has a 7-7 playoff record with a 24 plus turnover margin in 2024. So this is a team that, despite a lot of people who were, dogging them for not having weapons, what are we doing with Josh Allen, all that stuff, they ended up last season exceeding expectations, winning the division once again, making a run. It didn't work out, but they ended up becoming a team that didn't really turn the ball over and got turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
Their offensive coordinator is Joe Brady. Famously, I'm not going to go through the whole rundown. We'll probably organically talk about it as we go through these coaching staffs. But Joe Brady, famously known for being the passing game coordinator for the LSU Tigers in 2019 during that juggernaut season.
That was such a good team. Jesus.
Man, all these years later, so many talented players in the NFL. 30.9 points per game scored in 2024. And that was, of course, in regular seasons. That's second in the league. 227.9 pass yards per game scored in 2024. And that was ninth in the league. They had 131.2 rush yards per game. And that was ninth in the league. Then we got Bobby Babich, who was the defensive coordinator. He's been with the team since 2017. He was the defense coordinator last year. That was his first season. And prior to joining the Bills staff, he worked as a positional coach in the secondary. So they really hired from within here.
Yeah.
The story with the defense is they really just did their job. They're nothing like top 10 here. They have a pretty good points per game allowed. They ranked 11th or tied for 11th. They weren't spectacular in pass yards per game, which I think when we get to the draft, it will make a lot of sense. Pretty solid in the rush yards per game. And Chris Tabor, who was their special teams coordinator, he joined the team in 2025. He was the interim coach and special teams coordinator for the Panthers in 2023. So, Dirk, I want to start off with you, man. What are your thoughts on the Bills coaching staff and any changes they've made in 2025?
This is not where the Bills are going to hate me. As far as their coaching staff goes, I mean, we can't. The Miami Dolphins aside, the Buffalo Bills coaching staff is a who's who of what you would want to see from a coaching staff on a football team. You've got overqualified coaches at nearly every position. They all have a very successful rap sheet. The players love every single one of them. And let's face it, I mean, aside from the success they've had, Buffalo is a largely undesirable place to play. The reason players want to go there is because of the winning environment and the coaching staff. And that's why. People say, oh, they want to come play with Josh Allen. No, that's not it. It's the coaching staff and it's the winning mentality. Obviously, Josh Allen is a part of that, but he ain't the reason. It's the coaching staff. They're a wonderful coaching staff. So that's what I feel about the coaches.
Yeah, and you know what I really like most about specifically Sean McDermott is when you watch him coach, he doesn't do the Mike McDaniel thing. He doesn't overthink it. He doesn't overcomplicate it. He doesn't. Yeah. He's a simple, and I mean this in the best way possible, but he's a very simple coach. He's smart as hell, and he just knows how to be a head coach. He delegates really well. He allows his coaches, his coaches to coach. And he doesn't, it seems, I'm not obviously a fan of the Bills, so those Bills fans out there that are watching the show laughing at us, please comment in the comment below. Reach out and let us know what your thoughts are. But it seems to me, at least when I watch this coaching staff, that Sean McDermott is a macro manager, and he lets all of his coaches micromanage, which is, I think, as a head coach, which is, and Taylor, you know this because we said it multiple times on the show, that is what I want Mike McDaniels to do, right? I know Mike McDaniels came over, and I know we're not talking about the Miami Dolphins right now, but I will always find a way to tie something back to Miami. But Mike McDaniels, he came over as this offensive guru, this run game guy, this great play caller, the play design guru. And you can tell that, as a head coach, he hyper focuses on that stuff, and he lets other things fall by the wayside. Sean McDermott doesn't. I mean, it's really that simple.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like there's a lot to be said about like Sean McDermott's success, especially in the regular season. He has had mixed success in the playoffs, and they, of course, well, it seems like the Dolphins' number one rival to beat are the Bills. The Bills have their own, and it's not the Dolphins; it's the Chiefs. No. They have got to get over that Chiefs hump. But there is one thing about McDermott that I think is similar to Mike McDaniel. I think he's stubborn. I really do. You look at that game against the Chiefs where they kept trying their own version of the tush push, and it was not working. But you know what? They're like, we got Josh Allen. We got to keep trying it. And it ends up costing them. Now, whether or not they should have gotten that first down, hey, man, that's up for debate. But at the end of the day, they didn't get it officially. So I think he's a really good head coach that has got to get over the hump. But Dirk, you said it best. Like, this is a coaching staff that from top to bottom, man, there's a lot to like here. There's just so much talent. And honestly, whenever you get into the players who left free agency, they didn't lose a whole lot in terms of notable free agents. They lost Von Miller, who's still a free agent, Mac Hollins, who went to New England, and Amari Cooper, who is still a free agent. In terms of who they've signed, they re-signed Josh Allen. They signed running back Darrynton Evans, running back Ty Johnson, fullback Reggie Gillum, wide receiver Elijah Moore. That one was pretty recent as well.
Yeah.
Wide receiver Josh Palmer. Khalil Shakir signed an extension.
Big money. Big money.
Yeah, big money for Khalil Shakir. I'm pretty happy for him there because he is one hell of a slot receiver.
He really is.
Kendrick Green, the guard, signed a 1-year deal. Joey Bosa, which that's a player that we were talking about weeks ago before the draft. Like, was he going to go to the Dolphins?
Well, he would have, but we didn't want to pay him $12.6 million, which I don't blame us. So
yeah. So they end up replacing Von Miller with Joey Bosa, essentially. They also get a few other edge rushers, Michael Hoyt. They re-sign Greg Rousseau. They fill out the D-line room with Larry Ogunjobi.
Ogunjobi. And I'll tell you what, that might be one of my favorite signings of theirs.
Yeah, I agree. We'll get into it, but I definitely agree. I would really like a lot of what they did on the D-line. Cornerback Christian Benford signed a extension. Dane Jackson, Travarius White both signed. Travarius White coming back to the Bills. Derek Forrest signed a 1-year deal along with DeMar Hamlin re-signing, and then they ended up re-signing their long snapper as well. So really, I think the story of their free agency is keeping players that they felt like, hey, these are foundational pieces, especially on the defense, and let's reward Josh Allen for really holding it down and being the guy on offense. And then they just get a bunch of role players and go into the draft with it. I really like this offseason so far for them.
Yeah, for me, they lost. All right. You lost Mac Hollins, who, ex-Dolphin, like go team, right? I'm happy for him that he landed on, I think he's making the AFC East rounds, kind of like Fitzpatrick did, right? Amari Cooper, I think I don't know. I think Amari Cooper's a shell of what he used to be, personally. I think he's still a good wide receiver, but I don't think he's a top wide receiver in the league anymore. And Von Miller's, old as dirt when it comes from an NFL standpoint. I think he's 5 years younger than me, but still. I think, to your point, Taylor, I think the Bills made really good decisions. right, in the offseason. They spent on their foundational pieces. They locked up the players that were key to their success, right? So I don't think they overspent on many players, right? I mean, they offered quite a lot of 1 and 2 year deals. It looks like, they got Josh Palmer in. I like that 3-year, 36 mil, right? 18 mil guaranteed. I think that's a real smart number for Josh Palmer. I think he was in a real bad if he can stay healthy. And now that he has a quarterback that isn't, one of the carousel Indianapolis Colts, I think where was Palmer? Was he Colts or was he
with the Chargers?
Chargers.
I thought you were taking a shot at Herbert.
Nope, same. I mean, I'm not a fan of Herbert either. So, but I think, Josh Allen's deal, it is kind of exactly, in the words of Romeo Cromwell, it is exactly what we thought it was, right? 330 million, 250 mil guaranteed. Like that's outstanding money for Josh Allen's talent, right? We already talked about Khalil Shakir. I think that's a really good, smart move for them, right? I think they were very diligent in letting, who was the wide receiver that they let go? That was their
Matt Collins.
That was their big Miami Dolphins killer for a couple of years. Gabe Davis.
Yep, who
Davis.
just got released today by the Jaguars.
Yep.
They let him go, and even I was like, oh man, that's bold. But Khalil Shakir slid right in, played outstanding for them, right? I think Joey Bosa is, for me at least, I don't know, Dirk, I'll let you chime in, but I think even with his injury history and everything, I do think he's an upgrade over Von Miller. And Larry Ogunjobi is, I'm a big fan of his 8-year career, right? He's played in 124 games in those 8 years. He's got almost 30 sacks, I think, if I'm not mistaken, a bunch of forced fumbles. I know it's only a 1-year deal, but this 1 year, $8 million deal, $8.3 million deal, whatever it is, could really turn into a long-term contract to kind of finish out his career in Buffalo. And I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I actually wanted Ogunjobi for us
So did I.
badly.
Yep.
I was kicking the bench for him all, as soon as the season ended, but you're right. There's definitely an improvement over Von Miller for sure. And also the stress of having Von Miller on your team and all the crap that he brings with him off the field. So
we're familiar with that.
And my overall impression, of free agency and their re-signings and those moves, you can't fault them for it. I mean, it's a very productive offseason for the Bills. They, like you said, they kept the players that they wanted or that they needed, and they let some go, but they did a pretty good job with free agency. The part where I think that they really dropped the ball was in the draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll get to draft in a second. The
Sure.
last thing I do want to mention is when it comes to being responsible and re-signing your players, it is something that we talked about with the Dolphins as well, and something we'd like to see the Dolphins be a bit better at, in the long run. And that's something that I think we could look at the Bills here and what they built and going, hey, they didn't overspend. They drafted well. They paid the players that they believed in, and then they replaced some pieces like Von Miller, for instance, Dirk. And while Joey Bosa probably isn't who I would want to replace him with, at least it is something to where you're not having to deal with the off the field headache that Von Miller could potentially bring to your team. So overall, pretty good there.
And we didn't even talk about Terrell Bernard, the linebacker, right? 4-year extension,
Bernard.
$50 million, or Bernard, stud, right? Mm-hmm. Drafted by the Bills, 2022, right? Just leadership, playmaking at its finest at the linebacker position. So 50 mils, pretty good on the 4-year extension.
So getting into the draft, and I'm kind of with Dirk here because I have some issues with the Bills draft. Nothing to do with their second round pick, but let's go round by round here. They got Maxwell Harrison, the corner from Kentucky, in the first round. They end up getting interior defensive lineman T.J. Sanders from South Carolina in the second. Edge rusher Landon Jackson in the third from Arkansas. Interior defensive lineman Deion Walker from Kentucky in the fourth. Safety Jordan Hancock from Ohio State in the fifth, along with tight end Jackson Hawes from Georgia Tech. In the sixth round, they get cornerback Dorian Strong from Virginia Tech. Some people kind of had him as a, third, fourth round player? So
I
that's a bit of
I had a fringe fourth grade on him.
Yeah. So there's some value there for sure. You have tackle/guard Chase Lunt from Connecticut in the 6th round, and they ended up ending their draft with wide receiver Caden Prather from Maryland in the 7th round.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I mentioned I was very happy with their 2nd round pick, TJ Sanders. He's a player I wanted for the Dolphins, and it sucks they went to the Bills because I think he does match up very well with whoever the Dolphins have on their offensive line. Other than that, though, I don't care for Deion Walker. I think he has great measurables, great physicals, but you watch the film, he's just not that great.
He's not an impact player at all.
He really isn't.
Mm-mm.
Maxwell Hairston, I'm a fan of his speed. I'm a fan of his ability to jump routes.
Mm-hmm.
But the injury he had last season and how he just doesn't really play with much strength, and I don't think he's very great in press situations either, and that really concerns me as a 1st round pick. Dirk, let's start with you because you didn't care for this draft either. What are your thoughts?
No. I'll just start with Maxwell Hairston just right off the bat. And like I said, these are NFL players. So when they're in comparison to me, an old ex-college football player, this is a different kind of thing. But I'm going to take this time to stand on my soapbox and say this. Maxwell Hairston is a mistake for the Buffalo Bills. He is a good fit for the zone scheme that the Bills run. But beyond that, Maxwell Hairston is a target on the field for a good run game. You see Maxwell Hairston on the field, you run to his side every single time. Maxwell Hairston cannot play run defense whatsoever. If they get into the 2nd level, any team against the Bills, Maxwell Hairston is going to get run over or he's going to get run by.
Mm-hmm.
He does not know how to play run defense. Like you said, he's really bad in press coverage. He is a ball hawk. I'll give him that. If you throw a sloppy pass or a weak duck over the middle of the field, he's going to take it. But anything other than that, he's underwhelming is the best way to put Maxwell Hairston. They should have used that pick on defensive linemen for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you watch his tape at Kentucky, he actively shies away from contact.
Yeah.
Which you can't have. I mean, he's going to be probably their number 2 cornerback, right? I would think. Come like day one, I mean, I'm barring injuries or other signing. I mean, Tre'Davious White, I'm not big on. Dane Jackson, I'm not big on. Christian Brentford signed to $76 million. Okay, so he's probably CB1. Maxwell.
Ever since White got hurt too, like he's just has not been the same player he was.
This is gonna sound so bad, and this is not me being an anti-Bills guy. I swear to everything holy. My favorite pick. My favorite pick of theirs is their 6th round pick at 206 and offensive tackle/guard Chase Lunt from Connecticut. Right? I mean, I live in Connecticut, so I'm not doing the homer thing, but I think he offers versatility. I had a fringe 5th, so they got him with they got decent value in him. I'm a little bit higher on Deion Walker than you are, Taylor. It seems. I don't think that was a great pick at 109 in the 4th round. If I got him in the 5th round, I think that would have been better value. But yeah, it's odd. Their picks always every player. If you go down the list of their draft class, it's like they're taking it a round or 2 early, right? Like Maxwell Harrison, I had a round 2 grade on. TJ Sanders, I had a late 2 on. Landon Jackson, they got him in the 3rd round. I think that was I had a 2 on him. I think. Deion Walker, I had a 5th on. Hancock, I had a late 5th on. So, I mean, like, it's just, you look at their draft and you're like, oh, you guys reached on quite a lot of things, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the thing with TJ Sanders, I think I had a 1st round grade on him.
You did. I think so.
And so I have no issue with the value on that and no issue with him being picked. But then you go get Deion Walker later that I don't hate in terms of drafting him to be somebody to eat up space.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that we'll talk about with another team in the AFC East and picking a player that's like, man, I know why you picked this player here, but why? Like, why in terms of what you saw on film? Because there's no way you just are projecting this much and you're picking him in the 4th round.
Yeah. Now, all of this being said, Maxwell Harrison has the ability to be a good NFL player, right?
Yeah.
I don't think any of us are saying he didn't deserve to be drafted in rounds 1 or 2. Maybe didn't deserve to be drafted in round 1. I think we can all agree on that. But, still a high producing college football player, but there's just so many flags with him that worries me. If I was a Bills fan, I'd be worried. I would be excited about the talent and the ceiling potential. But, I mean, I was also excited about the ceiling of Pat White. So what does that say? Right. And that's kind of the vibe I get. Like, he's one hit away from being out permanently. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dirk, to your point about Maxwell Hairston's ability in press and stop the run, just to talk about how it matches up with Miami, man, Miami would love to run to those cornerbacks.
Yeah, yep. we have the line and the running backs to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
It doesn't line up for the D line. It definitely lines up for the corner in terms of Miami's strengths. As you're saying, Dirk.
Yeah, I feel like they biffed on the draft this year. The one player that I liked. I did like Landon Jackson. Their second round pick. I liked him a lot. So I feel like they hit there. But for the most part, I feel like they just missed on a lot in the draft. And of course, all the legacy sports media, ESPN, CBS, and Fox, and they're all giving them A+ in these drafts. But I just don't see it that way.
Landon Jackson looks like Uncle Fester to me.
Dude, yeah, he's so lanky.
It's so funny. He's bald. He's so light. It's hilarious.
Dirk, you bring up a good point though. Like these draft grades, and even us talking about it, right? There's a chance 6 months from now we all three look like fools,
right?
Because Maxwell Hairston could end up being the ball hawk that you said he could be. He ends up living up to that hype, and they just minimize the weaknesses in his game.
That's why it's so important. It's so important to make sure that once we do these things, these evaluations, we go back at the end of the season, evaluate again, and look at all this and see how we did.
Yeah, we can't cover it up because it's live in a living color on YouTube, so we can't run from it.
So I kind of brought it up when talking about TJ Sanders and Maxwell Hairston and Landon Jackson. How do you think the Bills' 2025 roster, as it stands right now, matches up to the Dolphins? Dirk, let's start with you.
Judging by what's happened with both teams this offseason and how things have gone, right now I still think obviously the Bills are a better team. However, I do think that the gap has been closed a little bit. I think that this year we're going to see probably a little bit closer games between the Bills and the Dolphins. I know it can't get much closer than that second game last year, beating us by a 60-yard field goal, but these games are going to be close this year. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at. Little closer between the two teams.
Josh, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard because as a Dolphins fan, we're like, look at our offseason versus theirs. But look, I mean, at the end of the day, they still have absolute studs on their roster, right? I mean, players we didn't even talk about. And, I think if health was not a point of conversation, I think we are, to Dirk's point, I think we're real close. I mean, real close. I think we're much closer than we were last year. I genuinely believe that because I think we're a deeper team this year than we were last year. I think last year we were a top heavy team, and we had a bunch of Ferraris in a snowstorm. I think this year we got beef. I mean, beef, right? We were beefy everywhere. And I think that helps for, January football when we play the Bills. And, my concern is that the Bills somehow seem to dodge the injury bug for the most part, outside of a player here and there, but for their key players, the Josh Allens, some of their offensive linemen, their star running back and their number one wide receiver, for example, never seem to get hurt. And, so it's one of those things where an injury to Tua, our seasons is sunk, right? I mean, it's just that simple. And Tua is, I think, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. However, if he sneezes the wrong way or lets one rip the wrong way, he's going to blow his back out and he's out for 5 games. So it's one of those things where the health is really going to play a factor in how close we are to the Bills. But looking at it today, everyone is healthy outside of Hill having a second surgery on his hand. I think we're much closer this at this point in time than we were at this point in time last year.
Yeah, DeMar Hamlin almost dies, and then the football gods are like, okay, we'll just chill with the injuries for the Buffalo Bills for a while.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, oops. Yeah, we put all those eggs in one basket. Okay, sorry guys. Yeah.
Yeah, and it always seems like the Bills at the end of the season, you have the announcers go, yeah, their offensive line have played together all season, all the snaps, nobody's come out at all. Like, I don't understand how they have managed to avoid it.
Yeah.
And I agree with you 100% when it comes to, like, I feel like that gap has closed just a little bit. The problem is when you're talking about a team like the Bills is, hey, you got Sean McDermott. Hey, you got Josh Allen. You got James Cook. All these players that are battle-tested, ready to play. So one thing I really like how this offseason went for Miami is I think you got battle-tested guys. I think you got beef. You got people who, as you said, Josh, you can win in January with these guys. You just have to get there. That's what it's all about.
Okay.